Listen, we're going to jump right in. So as maybe you came in or when you're going out, just remind group guides are ready, printed out for you, updated every single week. Grab one of those. Obviously, if you're not in a group, stop by the table and jump into one. This is our kind of our soft entry. It's a midway point. We really launch officially August all the way through school year. But this is like our midway point. We're having a lot of people come in. And then maybe right at the very beginning of the year, you're not in a group right now. So we just put those out there. Those are not all the groups. Some of them are already full. So jump into those. Make sure you stop by after this and maybe get into some conversations and see some interest and sign up. I know Pastor Keith already mentioned this, but I'm excited. We're fasting, guys. It's just such a good time. If you haven't started already, you can start this afternoon. You can start tonight. Don't let the ill preparation stop you from engaging. If you just showed up, man, welcome, fast with us. Just welcome to this place and get on in as family. If you guys haven't been here for the past couple weeks and didn't know about that, that's all right. You can, again, still jump in. Some people I'll just give you a little heads up. I got to get into the message, but I still want to just pastor this moment. You can progressively fast. You can start small and then just progressively move up this week. Listen, it's a corporate time for all of us as a family to do a week right now. We're going Sunday to Sunday. But can I just tell you, you don't have to stop next Sunday, right? So, just for the record, you're like, oh, thankful it's done. If you're fasting and you're really trying to kill something, maybe you just need to go a little bit longer and keep saying no to that fleshly desire. So I know a lot of people are just going to continue on with a degree of fasting after a week. A week just gets us started. Produces the atmosphere. Two big things that we're really looking for is we're pressing into is more. That's the big covering. We want more, right, church? We want more. We want more specifically of his presence, and we want more of his promises. And that's what we're going after, because that's what I feel like the Lord's inviting us into. That's why we are in the book of Joshua. Great segue. Have you guys enjoyed the book so far? Good, man, it's been good reading through it. So again, if you haven't started it, it's not too late. We're in chapters 2, 3, and 4 today. Last week, we covered chapter 1. The week before that, we gave you some context. So go back and check those out if you want to. We're going to be in chapter 2 today, Joshua chapter 2. I'm telling you, there's a lot in here, and I'm going to give you some content for your groups. So without further ado, this is not going to be one of those messages where you can take in all of the fire hose today, but you're going to need to write notes, listen, maybe come back, get into a group, and then start the conversation up again, because Joshua is just packed full. We're not going to cover all of it, but there's going to be some main things that I want to really highlight that are for our transformation personally, so we can stoke up some revival in our hearts. Come on, somebody, so that we can renew the city. And so that's why, main reason why we are looking into this book. We're going to do a whiteboard session. Anybody likes a good whiteboard session? Hey. But as you can tell, you're like, where's your whiteboard? We're going digital. What? Yeah, I know. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, we're going to jump right in. Here's the first thing we're going to look at is Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2. And if you haven't been in here, if you're not reading this yet, if you have no idea what's going on, I want to specifically go into, I don't want to, just keep that up there, please. I don't want to tease you just yet. Listen, chapter 2 it's 24 verses of just a story about a prostitute who welcomes two spies, and it's all, that whole chapter, 24 verses, that's a lot of verses about one particular story. And you got to think of, like, why did they take so long to talk about Rahab bringing in these two spies and, checking out Jericho, when you didn't spend that much time on chapter 1? And there's a big reason for this. I want to drill down on verses 9, 10, and 11. I think just give you one of the reasons why I think that they did this. But if you don't know, Joshua is camped on the land. Remember that? They're peering out over the Jordan. They're seeing their promised land. He sends out 2 spies, so significant. 2 spies into Jericho. They get there. Rahab brings them into her home, talks to them, and ends up saving her and her family. But then the king gets a hold of it. The soldiers come, say, hey, where's those 2 guys that you're hiding? And she diverts them. She uses a little bit of flattery in there. And she's like, man, I think you guys can take them out. You guys look strong. You guys been working out? That's cool. I think they went that way. And so she just puts them on, and they go for it. They fall for it, and they leave. And so then they're safe. And that's where the story is. Okay, we're gonna jump in where Rahab then has a conversation, goes back up on the roof and says, hey, they're gone. I need to tell you something. And this is where we're at. Rahab said to the men, the 2 spies from Israel, Joshua's men, Rahab says to Joshua's men, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water. She's going all the way back to Moses. Dried up the water of the Red Sea before you, and you came out of Egypt, and what you did to those 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. I know about that. And then, check this out, verse 11, and as soon as we heard it, our hearts, she's talking about Jericho, our hearts melted. There was no more spirit left in the man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is the God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now listen, you need to know something. Rahab is drilling these 2 spies like she's preaching at them. I know who you are. In fact, I know where you've been. I know what your God's done. I remember Moses. We got wind of this. If I was the 2 spies, I'd be like, my goodness, lady, what is happening right now? This is not derogatory nor disrespectful. This lady was a prostitute. She was not a scribe. She was not a teacher of the law. She wasn't in education. My question is, where did she get that? Where did she get verses 9, 10, 11? Listen, this is so profound. She has a feeling and a sense that the atmosphere shifted when 2 men comes into her city. That's what should happen when you show up to work. Hey, what just happened? What do you mean? I just feel something shifted. Oh, you know what? You know who it is showed up to work today. There should be a shift in the atmosphere when you show up to your city. You wake up today and there's somebody inside the city like Rahab being like, whoo, man, something just changed. Something shifted. And when she meets the 2 guys, she goes, wow, there's something coming up inside. It's a prophetic word. There's something comes up, and she sees these 2. Hey, you, get in my house right now. Get up there, hide. The enemies come, go that way. And then she comes back. I know who you are. I know about Moses. I know about Egypt. I know about the power of your God. And then she says this in verse 11, for the Lord your God, he is the God in the heavens above and the earth below. Do you know what she's saying? She's saying, let me just correlate it. Do you remember when Jesus has the same conversation with Peter? Hey, who do you say that I am? I'm not just a carpenter. You're not just some dude from Galilee. Who do they say I am? I'm telling you right now, in my heart, you are the Messiah. You're God. This is what she's saying. And Jesus' reply was, flesh and blood did not reveal that to you. Who revealed that to Rahab? Not flesh and blood. God is doing a work inside of Rahab to be like, I see the work of God in you. This is powerful. Now, I want to tell you something because Rahab, I'm going to stay right here in this section. Rahab is operating in a spirit that is so familiar because there's only a few individuals that have operated like this. And you know him by Joshua. Joshua operated in the same spirit that Rahab did. The only other guy that we know was Caleb. There's 3 individuals. Man, this is so significant. There's 3 individuals who operated like this. And it was Joshua. He led him and his entire family into the promised land. The only other person from the Israelites that went in were Caleb and his descendants. The only other person from Jericho that got into the promised land was Rahab. And as you know, the family got saved because of it. This is so, from what? Because she had something that was familiar with Joshua and Caleb. Now I want to show you what it is because it's all over the place here. All right, here we are. Joshua chapter 2, just look up on the screen here. She says this word, I know, this is significant right there, that the Lord your God has given you the land, and that the fear, she senses something, the fear of you has fallen upon us, and all the inhabitants, she describes it like this, have melted away before you. And this is it, another word right here. We have heard that how the Lord dried up, and he's talking about all the works of God in verse 10. And then she says it again, we have heard, hearts melted, there's no spirit left in the man. And then she gives this, this revelation, this insight that she has. I want to just propose to you that she's operating in this right here, discernment. Now, discernment is significant, but can I just tell you that all of us operate in discernment? All of us have discernment. Rahab had it, Joshua, Caleb, they all had discernment, but so does all of Jericho, and so do all of the Israelites and Moses. What's the difference between the people who got into the promised land and the people who did not get into the promised land? Yeah, a while ago, this is last year, this is a throwback, I did a message on principalities. Are you familiar? I was talking about the third heaven, second heaven. The third heaven is the perfect reality. When you have Rahab, Joshua, and Caleb, they are discerning the third heaven, the perfect reality of God. Just a little glimpse, all of Jericho, all of the Israelites and Moses and all those individuals are still discerning, but they're discerning the second heaven, where it's filtered and woven in with things like fear, insecurity, and shame and anxiety. Because if you remember, just as an example, remember the 12 that Moses sent out. I'm sending out the 12. 10 of them came back. They said, there's giants. The land is too much. The armies are too big. And in fact, this is what they said. It's in Numbers chapter 14. They said that we are like grasshoppers in their sight. How they're not mind readers. You have no idea how they see you. But in fact, they said they see us like grasshoppers. That's how big they are. What is he operating in? He's not operating in faith. He's operating in fear and insecurity. And what is he doing? He's picking up discernment. Look, all of us operate. All of us have discernment. But what we do with the feelings absolutely change the destiny. And I'm telling you right now, we have to have some people with the same spirit that Rahab, Joshua, and Caleb had, because it's leading ourselves and our family into the promised land. Are you catching this? Now, there's one other scripture I want. This is actually in support, so don't think that I'm going to Romans 12. This is a cross-reference still in Joshua, but I want to tell you something. I appeal to you, therefore, this is Romans chapter 12. Appeal to you, brothers, by the mercies of God. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable, which is your spiritual act of worship. You know, this section right here is sandwiched from that by the testing. And then here it is, you may discern the will of God, good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. So we have this section right here and this section right here. It's like sandwiched in between this right here. Verse 2, do not be conformed. That word conform is actually a word that means to be changed and shaped by things around you. Listen, this is so important. Jericho was shaped by the things that were around them. 2 men stepped in Jericho and the whole atmosphere changed, and all of Jericho submitted to the fear that the men brought. But Rahab was like, hey, shifting of an atmosphere is happening right now, but there's 2 men that are responsible, and I want in. Are you catching it? I want in. I want into the perfect, what is it? I'm discerning the will of God, the good, acceptable, perfect will of God. I want in on that. I want in on the reality of heaven coming down to earth. I don't want to be distracted by the fear that kind of comes in. Listen, discernment is operating in feelings. It's operating in things like I see, I hear, I feel, I smell. We operate like this, but we cannot be driven by our emotions. Come on, emotions inform you. They don't transform you. Feelings are like, hey, this is a little tidbit, just want to give you some 2 cents here, but don't operate from it. Oh man, I sense fear in the room. What do? You pull out the authority that God has given you because you have confidence in the fact that you're a son and a daughter. I'm not going to be conformed to what's around me, but I sense it. I'm going to pull down what I know to be true of who I am and of heaven so that I can shift the atmosphere for your good, Lord, for your good. That's what was happening. Don't be conformed, but do the will of God through discernment. And that's exactly what's happening right here in Joshua chapter 2 with Rahab and Joshua. And I'm still on the same point. This is still Joshua chapter 2. I'm going to be just really quick, a little cross-reference. Numbers chapter 14, we're talking about your boy Caleb. God says, but my servant Caleb, listen, he has say this with me, he has a, come on, say it with conviction like it's you. He has a, yes, and he has followed me fully. I will bring into the land into which he went. Remember, he was one of the spies. And I'm not only going to bring Caleb, but also his descendants shall possess it as well. And this is God describing Caleb. Caleb, Joshua, and Rahab all are operating in a different spirit. Man, let me just tell you right here. This is one of my points. Discernment is meant to give you. It is designed to give you a different spirit. Discernment for the world is to be conformed by everything else that you see. There's no need for a different spirit when you are operating down the broad road that leads you to destruction. Well, I'm operating in popularity. Everybody accepts me. Everybody wants me. Everybody loves me. Everybody is lifting me up because it's the fear of man. And there's no need for a different spirit because you're going down the same stream they are. It says, don't love the world. Don't even be friends with the world. In fact, there's enmity between you and God if you love the world. Listen, we live here, church. We live in this world. We are just not of it. We are citizens of heaven. And we're supposed to be operating with a different spirit. We have discernment. God, I feel like there's some things going on right now. And I don't want to speak into this political thing, but like it's here. You know, we got a new president and all that. But I'm telling you right now, there's so many positive things that we hear the president's doing. But I'm telling you right now, there's a false peace over his election. There's nothing to do with him. Like, we need to pray for him. He's doing some incredible things. But I'm telling you right now, if we're not careful, we go 6 months, 8 months, a year into this thing, and the church can get complacent because you got your guy in what you wanted to. Everything else seems to be more conservative because that's in line of the church. This is not our Savior. Jesus needs to come down and do some stuff inside of our hearts. Listen, he's doing a great job, but we've got a job to do. We need to clean up our streets by allowing God to clean up our hearts. I'm telling you, we have to discern what's really going on. It's easy to turn on the news and be like, hey, a bunch of good is happening. Wait. No, there's a bunch of destruction happening still in my heart, in the people that I love, in my city. What do? We let God do work inside of us because we operate in a different spirit. We need to be like Joshua. We need to be like Caleb. Why? Because we're bringing our people and our descendants into the promised land. Just got to get my breath, Naomi. Faith is mandatory when you're looking into the promised land. Faith is something that Joshua saw and nobody else saw. He went in with the 12 spies. Hey, I see something amazing. I see a land that's full of milk and honey. And I see a land that God has given us. And he comes back with a positive report with Caleb, 2 that go into the promised land. Faith always provokes you to do something. That's why Joshua then gets in. Okay, here's one of my other points. In Joshua chapter 2, you see Rahab demonstrating this idea that faith actually provokes deeds. It definitely does. But my recommendation is that you look at Rahab, Joshua, and Caleb, and also look that faith provokes dangerous deeds. Faith is never going to encourage you to sit on the couch. Faith is never going to allow you to do something that you could do inside of your own strength. God never is going to come to you in a dream or speak to you and be like, hey, here's this massive mountain that I want you to take. Here's all of Canaan. Here's the promises that you need to go through. You just need to go through your Jordan. Here's all of the things of God he's going to give you. And then all of a sudden he's like, but don't worry, you can accomplish this. You can do it. You don't even need anybody else's help. You can do it by yourself. And God's like, you don't even need me. There's never going to be a moment in which God presents you something, faces you with something, gives you an experience, says something to you that doesn't mandate and require faith to be elevated to say, God, I'm going to be more dependent on you, and I need other people in my life for this thing to be accomplished. Because by definition, it is impossible, and that's the only thing he does. He brings the impossible and makes it possible. Faith provokes dangerous deeds. Guys, we can't get comfortable in these moments. All right, that's chapter 2. Now we need to keep going. You guys have been giving me way too much feedback. I need to actually make progress here. Joshua, here we are. We're making progress. We're in Joshua chapter 3. All right, let's just read through. I got one main point here. I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you. It's in verse 3, and it's this right here. Levitical, just say this word with me right now. Priests. Do you know who the priests are today? Say me. Yes. Who's the priest? Yes, you guys are. All right, here we go. Verse 1. Joshua rose early in the morning. They set out to Shittim. They came to the Jordan. He and all. Remember, this promise isn't just for 1, 2 people. It's for everybody. He and all the people of Israel lodged there before they passed. This is reminiscent of Joshua chapter 1 here. And at the end of the 3 days, do you remember this? The officers went through the camp and commanded the people. Now this is the update, verse 3. As soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant, which represents the presence of God right here, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God being carried by who? The priests. Then and only then do not move until you see the Ark carried by the priest. Then you shall set out from the place and follow it. All right, here we go. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it. That just means the presence of God is holy, and don't get too close to something that's holy. You might die. So just stay back at a good length, 2,000 cubits. Do not come near it, in order that you may know where you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. Joshua said to the people, consecrate yourself, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. We've been doing this right here, consecration, since August. Then he goes on, he says, Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark and pass before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant. Joshua said, take up the ark, and they took up the ark. He said to the priests, take up the ark. They took up the ark before the covenant of the people so that they can see what's going on. A little bit further along, you guys, listen to me, lead the way. There is a mandate that is all the way from the Old Testament to the New Testament. You want to know the condition of the city? It's always the condition of the church. The condition of the church, even though it's not morally or ethically or even the focal point centered, it will always lead the way to a city. So if you see a city in decline, just go all the way back to the church. It's because the church has been in decline. It's every single aspect of a study of a society. All of the ologies inside of a society are all branched off of your theology. They all come back off of your awareness and your knowledge of who God is. I'm not saying that every city is religious in nature, because God doesn't want to form a religion. He wants to form a family that impacts all of the medical, all of the government, all of the economy. Come on, somebody. All the education, all the media. All of those are influenced by who? Human beings. And God's design from the very beginning is that glory would actually cover the earth like water covers the sea. The glory of God needs to be resembled in us so that God can do his plan. And the process in which he does that, he is now bringing here this reality that I want to bring to you guys, and it is the priests. He says this, you, the priests. And then he says it again in verse 6, priests, I want you to lead the way. What are we leading the way to? Well, let me just tell you, because you guys already know this. This is 1 Peter chapter 2. But you are a chosen race. You are here it is, a royal priesthood. You're a holy nation, people of his, God's own possession. Why? So that you can have God possess. Give so that you can give out. So you can proclaim the excellencies of his darkness, out of darkness into his marvelous light. I love this right here, verse 10. Once you were not a people, now you're God's people. Once you didn't receive mercy, now you receive mercy. That's you, you're priests. Now priests, I'm just gonna go through this really quick. Characteristics of a priest, there's a lot of good ones. Chosen by God, yes, you absolutely are. Your media, I don't want to cover that. Holiness, yes. Life of service, yeah. Teach and train, I don't want to. What I want to focus on is this right here. The priests carry the presence of God. Do you remember when David said, hey, I got a new method. I think God's presence is going to come on some ox. Do you remember that? And one of the guys actually tried to stabilize it whenever the cart hit a little bump. You remember what happened to your boy? He died on the spot. Remember, he's like, hey, the Ark of the Covenant keeps him distance. There's always, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, there's always been this reverence for the fear of the Lord. Don't try to control the Lord. Don't try to manipulate. Don't try to get him to do something that you think he needs you. He doesn't need you, doesn't need me. He can do any of this on his own. He chooses to operate in and through us. That should keep us humble to know that he is God and there is no other. And so here it is, the priests are to carry the presence of God. And I want to make a point here. This is it. I'm still in chapter 3, now verse 13. And when the soles of the feet of who? The priests, bearing the ark of the Lord, they shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, and the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from the flowing. The waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. All right, follow me. Chapter 3, Joshua says to his people, we're going to cross, but lead the way by the priest. Priest, you guys go ahead and pick up the ark. Who's the priest today? We are. Verse 13, they step into the water. That's what it says. They step into the water, and further down, it actually stops. Not in this verse, but in another verse. I want to show you something. It says it stops in the Adam. All right, so here in blue, I'm just going to give you this thing right in the middle. Do you guys see that? That's the Jordan right here. Now, right here, you probably can't see it, but let me just show you. That's Adam right there. Do you guys know where they are? Right here. Do you see that little dot? So look, they're about to cross the Jordan right here. Do you know the distance between this right here? That's over a 10-mile period. Yeah, you can't see it, but the key is right down here. This is an over 10-mile gap in between Adam. Here's my point. Joshua told the priest, hey, pick up the ark. Everyone's going to follow the presence of God because we haven't been this way before. And I know you guys are familiar with how this works. Usually a guy like me would come out and put up his staff, and then the Red Sea splits. Are you guys familiar? Everyone's like, oh, absolutely. Do it again. You're like, no, he's not going to do it again. Oh, really? What's it going to look like this time? It's going to be different. We haven't passed this way before. In fact, priests, you guys pick up the ark. Everybody step back. You guys lead the way. And then they put their feet in the water. And later on, it says the Jordan is raging because it's harvest time. I mean, the Jordan is flowing. And who goes in? Priests, because priests are beasts. They step in the water with the ark, 4 of them, 2 at the front, 2 at the back, and they sit there. You want to know how long? We don't know. But how long does it take the raging Jordan to stop all the way up here to Adam and then to stop flowing all the way down here to the Jericho area? How long? Your guess is as good as mine. Not immediately. Can I tell you that's significant about the Jordan that you're stepping in right now? You can't change anything unless you first experience it. Listen, there's been a season of the Red Sea, and I'm telling you, I love the Red Sea answers more than anything. I want to sit back like the Israelites. Moses, do your thing, man. I'm just going to be right here. You just split the Red Sea. Is he done yet? No, just don't get up yet. Okay, then he splits them, and the enemies are coming. Okay, now we can go. Now we can get up, casually take all your kids, dry land, crossing the Red Sea. We didn't even do anything on the Red Sea. And then we stop everyone safely, and then God crushes your enemies. Who doesn't like the Red Sea moments? I know I do. I just want to sit in my closet. God, would you do this? Whoa, you did that. God, would you do that? Wow, another answer to prayer. I love answers to prayer. This is not one of those days. Get into Jericho. Man, it's wet. I've never been in there before. We have to hold it. It's heavy. There's a reverence to this box. This is the presence of God. Priests are supposed to lead the way. Step in the water. I don't know if the water was up to the waist or the knees, but at some point in time, it started to decline. All the pressure and the moving and the rocks and the mud underneath them, and all of that was starting to push in. And then all of a sudden, it went from their waist down a little bit to their knees, down their ankles, and then they encouraged one another. Hey, guys, listen, God is doing something all the way. You can't see it, but by faith, we believe it. And we have to lead the way. You can't change anything until you first confront it. Let me tell you something right now, that the Jordan is not a symbolic, it's not allegorical, it's a real place in history. I'm telling you, church, your Jordan is a real place. What you have to experience, what you've got to cross over, you have to step foot inside of it, and then faith will be activated. There's something about this season. We don't have a Red Sea moment. We've got a Jordan. We're crossing the Jordan. You got to step inside of it. And I don't know the timeline from whenever God dried up Adam and halted all the water way up there, all the way down. I don't know how long that took, but I'm just telling you right now, it may take some time. Step inside of the Jordan and experience it, confront it, identify it, name it, because it's a real thing, so that then God can start operating inside of you. He will at some point in time dry up the land. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm telling you, he is going to do it. Joshua chapter 4. This is where we're going to land the plane. Joshua chapter 4. The whole nation gets into Canaan. Sigh of relief, satisfaction over everybody, celebration probably. A whole lot of anticipation coming to this moment. We cross the Jordan. There's still more work to do, but we're going in. And this is what it says. I wanted to highlight this. This is so important because you're Joshua. This is Joshua chapter 4, verse 14. On that day, the Lord exalted. Who? You, Joshua. He exalted Joshua in the sight of all of Israel, and they stood in awe of Joshua, just as they stood in awe of Moses all the days of his life. All of a sudden, they were following a leader to be like, wow, God is definitely in and on this man. And I want to make a point because this is Joshua chapter 4, 14, after the crossing of the Jordan. And I know all of us in our human endeavors want God to exalt us. But the exaltation doesn't happen until after the Jordan. There's a paradox in the kingdom. There's a paradox in the Gospels that maybe we don't pronounce as much, but I want to zoom in on it. Life doesn't come until after death. You don't have the resurrection unless you have the cross. You have these moments that are absolutely cyclical all throughout the Old Testament to the New Testament. You don't have your promised land until you go through the wilderness. There's these moments inside that are absolutely paradoxical. We want the life and life abundantly. God, give me the promises. Okay, I'm going to give you those, but you're going to have to go through some stuff first. Jesus actually tells Paul when he's converted, he doesn't first enter into a statement of like, man, I have so much for you, so many promises. I'm going to love you so much. You're mine forever. He goes, I must show him how much suffering he should go through. Why? Because suffering makes way for us to come fully alive. Suffering does something to kill off the old man, the selfishness, the complacency, the apathy, the ego. It kills off the old man so that the new man can be resurrected. And there's something coming up inside of here that Peter experienced. And Peter then learns it and experiences it so much, he writes it in one of his letters. And he says this, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and later he will exalt you. Do you see the order? And we're familiar with this because Proverbs says it, pride, then destruction. Pride, elevate yourself, then the fall. But Proverbs also says, where you see humility, you'll see honor. God will honor someone when you submit to him and man the process of being humbled. Joshua 14 is exalted in front of everybody. Why? Because this man has been walking with God for a long time. This isn't just the first act of a miracle that he's seen. He's been through it all, and he's been faithful. Guys, let me tell you, it's not one crossing of the Jericho. It's not one answer to prayer that God's looking for. It's not one interaction. It's not 1 week of fasting. It's faithful daily, every single moment, walking with him like he is viewing your life. Even if nobody else sees you, even if there's nobody else around, you have to live the life that you got to know this is for God, because at some point in time, I don't want to be exalted before the people. I want to be exalted before my God. And I know today I've got to humble myself to go through that process. And Joshua did just that. There's these moments in time where he's going to give us that are going to be absolutely amazing. And can I just tell you, before I get to this very last scripture and close, when you go through your Jordan, or maybe you're going through it right now, maybe you're just stepping into it, maybe you're just out of it. When you go through your Jordan, you will see the goodness of God. When you go through your Jordan, you will see the faithfulness of God. When you go through your Jordan, you will see the presence of God, the provision of God in your life. You're gonna see answers to prayer. You're gonna see his presence do things inside of your heart that you didn't ever know in a Red Sea moment. You wanted him to answer a prayer quick and do it way before you got there. You wanted him to open a door so that you can just smoothly walk through. But now you're standing in the middle of the experience, in the middle of the Jordan, and you're like, when, God? God's like, don't worry, I'm drying up the land all the way up in Adam. When is it gonna happen? Don't worry, just trust me. Just trust me. Just sit there. I feel like the water's getting higher. You may feel like that, but I'm lowering the water. And don't worry, I am with you. You're going to go through your Jordan, and I'm telling you, it's going to be so many good things you're going to be able to write down in your journal. Times of fasting like we're going through right now are so significant so that we can see these moments. But there's a reason for them. This very last verse in chapter 4, very last 2 verses says this: for the Lord your God, nobody else did this, he dried up the waters of the Jordan until you passed over. As the Lord your God did at the Red Sea, do you remember back then? Well, he also does it with the Jordan. He did it in the Red Sea. He dried up until you guys passed over. Verse 24, so that. Why did he do the Red Sea? Why does he do the Jordan? So that all of the people of the earth may know, discernment, that the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. The presence of God is going to be strong in the Jordan. But when you leave the Jordan and you get into your promised land, and you come into this place of abundance, and you come into the flowing milk and honey, and you experience all the promises and the fullness of his presence, the one danger that we get into is the fear of the Lord leaves. And then we think, hey, you've brought us through so much, so many answers to prayer, so much faithfulness, so much presence in our life, so many moments in which you spoke to me, my journal's filled, and then all of a sudden you have a season where all those miracles aren't happening again, and it's just battle after battle, fight after prayer, after you don't even know if he's answering, you don't even know if he hears you, and then there is a potential for us to move away because everything else around us got comfortable. And what does he say? I did this in the Red Sea, and I'm doing it over the Jordan. I'm doing it in your life. Why? So that you can keep the fear of the Lord as a remnant. Keep the relationship with the Lord, no matter if he's doing miracles, if he's allowing you to cross the Jordan or not. Why? Because he loves you and he wants a relationship so that you can know him. That's the point of this journey. We're coming into more of his presence. We're coming into more of his promises. But don't let the more blind you from the very giver of that. He's given abundance, but we can't neglect the relationship.